Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Matthew Boyle from LanguageCardGames.com, where we believe if you can play cards, you can learn languages. And I'm really excited about today's video because I'm going to take some time to kind of collect together all the past videos I've made about Language Guardians into one video that I'm calling Language Guardians 101. We're going to take it slow, take it easy, sit back, relax. I've got some jazz music on. Maybe you can grab a cup of tea or coffee, whatever is your persuasion. And if you've got your cards, you can take those out too, because we're going to take our time here. As you can see, I've got a lot of different topics lined up, and I think if you watch this entire video and kind of soak up how I'm laying things out for you here and explaining things for you, you are going to reap some great results from using Language Guardians with whoever you're playing with. Before we kind of dive into this video, I want to remind you, please, to like and subscribe so you can find your way back to this essential video. And that will also help other people who are interested in this type of information to find it as well. So go ahead and like and subscribe. Thank you so much. And now let's look at some of the topics I've prepared for us. We're going to kind of just talk about what is Language Guardians, maybe a little bit about how I came up with this and what the backstory of the game is. Then we'll open this up and look at we'll look at how the cards are laid out and what is exactly on the cards and what does each part of the card mean and represent. Then we'll go into how you actually play the game, and I'll show you how to start playing simply and easily. I'll show you how to play cooperatively and competitively. Next, we'll go on to some frequently asked questions that people have after they've played for only their first few times. Maybe some confusing points or challenging points that people often run into. And of course, at this stage, or really anytime you have a question, you can feel free to drop it down below. This would be a great place for me to handle your questions. Next, we'll talk about some other ways that you can play the main way this game is intended to be played. So some variations on the game. After that, we'll talk about some completely different games you can play using these same cards that still have language learning components to them. And finally, we'll talk about some different purchasing options because there's different versions and types of this game available for purchase. So I'll kind of explain those and let you know what's out there, because sometimes it can get a little confusing when you look online and you're rooting through all the different versions of this game that are out there, because there are several. All right. So, without any further ado, let's talk a little bit about the backstory of these cards. So I wanted to create something simple that could bring all ages and all levels of ability to the table, something that people could have fun playing together, really regardless of what language they're interested in and what level they're at, something that would really start the conversation and create these memorable emotions and events that help us retain the language that people are sharing and teaching us. I wanted to encourage people to come together in a real way in each other's physical presence, and have fun and make memories and let language exchange be the focus. So this is great for study sessions, game nights, language exchange groups. It's good for mixing up a class or a study session, and it will point out some areas where maybe you don't know many words, because this game has a lot of different and interesting categories. Now, what about the theme of it? Well, it's kind of a fantasy style themed, and this particular one, this first version of Language Guardians, or first edition, is kind of a Asian themed set, and I think you'll kind of pick up on that when you see the photos. And the idea is that the world is separated into 4 tribes that are warring. And it's a time when these tribes, all of them have decided to an extent that they don't want to learn about the languages and cultures and customs of the other tribes. They would rather just destroy them and push their language and their culture upon the others. So it has led to a world of constant warfare and strife. And the Language Guardians are members of each tribe that have decided to go the opposite way and become defenders and protectors of languages, learn the languages of other tribes, sometimes go on secret or clandestine missions to help all the tribes avert disaster and promote peace and understanding, and really to save the world. So that's why the game is called Language Guardians. And it's kind of a metaphor for what I want you to do. I want you to be interested in learning other countries' languages, cultures, and customs, and helping to protect them, which in turn will protect you and your language and your country. I want you to consider yourself a language guardian. All right, let's open these cards and show you what it's like when you first receive a deck in the mail. So this is what you will receive, and it comes in different boxes depending on what's available to me at the time. I really like this one because it's very strong and sturdy and clear all the way through. But there's different types, and you could always change the type if you want something different. It doesn't matter. They don't really have to stay in here. Let me take this out of here really quick. I have to push it, and it clicks closed. And then some of them are shrink wrapped completely, and I kind of like that better. This way is supposed to be more eco-friendly. It uses less plastic, and I like that, but unfortunately I feel like this way sometimes may not completely protect the cards that the customer's buying. So I do like the shrink wrap because it's a measure of security that proves to the customer no one opened it, no one tampered with it. But this way is okay too. I'm just maybe being a stickler. So we'll pull that off. I had been giving away pieces and parts of my last deck to children and friends, just who wanted to take one home, so it was time for me to open a new one. But it's good timing, because here we are making this video. So you've got about, I think there's 50, there should be, okay, there's 52 playing cards and 2 rules cards. And the rules are pretty simple, and we'll get into those in a moment, but I want to let you know that maybe watching videos of people play this online would be best, especially some videos we have here on this channel, because just seeing how it's played will help you understand much faster, I think, sometimes than reading through this text. Even though there's not much text here, it's a pretty simple game. We'll get into the rules in a minute. Let me put those aside. Oh, and let me also kind of check off where we are, and I'll put timestamps later on this video so you can navigate to different sections. But you'll see in here there's different categories, like people, animals, plants, places, and there's different colors. What do the different colors mean? Green emphasizes nouns. Red emphasizes sentences. Blue emphasizes verbs. Black and white emphasizes adjectives. That means when you have those cards, you have to say those types of words. I like to use the word emphasizes because I don't like to make hard and fast rules that are set in stone. If you want to say something slightly different that's in the general category or prompt of the card, go right ahead, whatever works for you and your needs. We don't have to be so fastidious about the rule sets, I think. And then there's one more color, a 5th color, and that is kind of, it's basically pink or purple. And these are wild cards, so you can put these down anytime on any card and change the color. Well, like I said, we'll get into how to play in a minute. I'm kind of jumping ahead. In this game, I refer to the colors as elements to give it a more fantasy-based feel, or a more fantastical feel. So don't get thrown off by that. Elements are simply earth, fire, water, wind, and in this game, there's a fifth element, the aether. And a lot of the world's cultures have elements in their, what would I say, in their cultural history. This idea of elements is you can find all over the world. So there's earth, which is green, fire, which is red, water, which is blue, air, which is black and white, and in the Western tradition at least, there was often a concept of the aether, which is the fifth element. And these colors and elements represent the different tribes, and the different tribes have different characteristics. And, you know, why that's important is because I've already created some, and I will be creating more, along with my team, stories and videos and other resources that support this card game. So you'll be able to read the stories, participate in the stories, and other mediums in a way that's going to solidify what you learn playing this game, and the different resources will kind of play into one another. So that's why we have backstories, that's why we have stories at all, that's why we have the elements, and that's why we have some storylines on these cards. So let's look at the card layout or breakdown. At the top is the name of the card. It represents the card's category. So you can see each category has 4 cards. The person category has 4 different cards, basically representing nouns, sentences, verbs, and adjectives. Every category has those 4 cards, except for the wild cards. They are singularly alone. And then comes the picture. By the way, the person's name, the name of the person who took this photo is on the bottom. So if you really like the photos, you can research these people more online. These people have shared these photos for free to be used in this game. And they don't even ask to be credited, but I like to credit these people. I really respect their creative work, so that's why I put their name. And then the first line explains to you, I suppose I should hold this a little bit closer. The first line explains to you what you should say. So when you have this card, it says to say a person's name, and then place this card on a card that has the same element or name. So I have to put this card down on a card that is the same element, aka green, or has the same name, person. And when I say that and put the card down, maybe the other people are going to challenge me on that, or maybe we're going to look it up, or maybe we agree that I said it right and we move on to the next player's turn. The next line is, it's kind of like a bit of backstory about this card. It's really some flavor text to kind of flesh out the universe of this game, and it's also will play into the stories that we are creating to support this game. So you can see here it says the Earthwalker wishes you harmony with all nature. And this is a picture of the Earthwalker. Now this serves another very important purpose too, and that is to stretch people's language learning ability. For the people who learn English with this game, the challenges are quite simple. The flavor text is a level up. It may challenge people to learn new vocabulary. And we also publish this game in other languages. So if you get other languages, for example, the French or the Italian, you can see what this translates to. And while you're playing, you can always look down to this line if you're kind of waiting and stretch yourself to see if you understand what that means. Okay, so that, and then there's some copyright and my name down there on the website. So that's basically the layout of the cards. The template of this kind of sentence structure is always the same. One thing you should pay close attention to is some of the more difficult wild cards have some extra special effects, such as reversing the direction of play, making players pass cards to each other, skipping the next player, and so on. So take careful note of those. Woo, it feels like a lot already, but I think if you're enjoying this and just taking it slow as I am, you're really going to appreciate this later, and it's going to bring you fantastic results. We're about to get into how to play this game now. If you haven't already, be sure and like and subscribe so you can find your way back to this if you ever need to refresh yourself on how to play. I'm not going to read these rule cards because you could read those rule cards yourself when you when you get this game. I'm going to show you how to play and explain how to play in a visual way. So there's basically two ways you could start, I think. You could start by playing with the whole deck right off the bat, which I think would be a little more challenging because there might be some categories that you don't know how to talk about in your target language just yet. If you're playing with other people at the table who do know those categories, go ahead, because in playing the game with them, you're going to learn those words really fast. And if you don't know some of your cards, how to say them, you can skip your turn and look them up. And there's another way is there's some wild cards which will let you get rid of those. So you could potentially just jump into the deep end here and use the whole deck. But I don't necessarily recommend that for most people. For most people, I recommend you take out, you take about half these cards out. Take out about half of the most difficult ones and then just play with the rest. And that will kind of segue you into this game in a very smooth way. So what I would do first, to have that kind of smooth entry into how to play this game, is put out the categories and see which ones you think you could handle the most easily. So there's people, there's animals, there's plants, there's places, there's apparel, which is anything you wear, food and drink, greetings and farewells, weather, weapons. Oh, I lost a weapon card there. The marketplaces, and then we have some wild cards. I'll leave those off to the side for a minute because it's getting a little crowded. So put these categories out and see which you think would be something that you could handle. I think it's pretty easy to talk about people and animals and maybe places and food and drinks, and I don't know, maybe some ways to say hello and goodbye, some greetings and farewells. And as you can see, I just took about half of those, so I think that's fine, and I'll leave the rest out for now. What about the wild cards? The first ones are the most easy, like color. To say a color, say a sport, say your numbers, say body parts, and I think that's really all you need to take. These ones are a little bit more challenging and kind of off the beaten path, like saying things that can spin, saying emotions, things you can do with your body, types of transportation. Let's just leave those out for now. About 4 or 5 wild cards should be plenty with half the deck. And then we need to shuffle them up. I really hope you're enjoying this video, and I'm so excited for you to try this game, because when you play with your friends or classmates or language studying partners, I think you'll quickly see how rich this can make the languages that you know, the vocabulary and the idioms and the sayings, because you'll be tapping into the power of social learning. Okay, so we shuffled it up. Now, how many cards should we deal to every person? Well, the more cards you deal out, the longer the game's going to take, and the more challenging it will be. I favor making it the games a little bit shorter and faster because it makes you feel more successful, and it lets you finish quickly so you can start another round. And then you can play 2 or 3 rounds. That seems to be more fun than if the game drags on and on. So I might give as low as maybe 3 cards up to about 5 cards to each person. So let's make it 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It also kind of depends how many cards you have in that deck, because you need to have some remaining cards for people to draw from. Okay, and then we flip over the first card to start. If that's a wild card, just put it in the bottom. Get one of the 4 standard colors, red, green, blue, or black and white. And that lets us know which card we should put down first. Let me flip these over so you can see what people are holding, something that wouldn't actually happen in a real game. Everybody would be hiding their own cards, but let's flip them over. And then the first person to the left of the dealer can start, or you could pick the youngest player or something like that. But let's just start over here. Okay, this person has to put down a same element card. Remember, element just means color. So they have to put down a card that is the same element, the same name. If they don't have one of those 2 things, then they would have to put down a wild card. If they have none of those things, then they have to draw a card. If they can put the card that they just drew down, then they can, and then their turn would be over. If they can't, they keep that card and their turn's still over. And then we go to the next person. This is not like Uno where you just keep drawing and drawing and drawing until you get a card that you can put down. That's insane. I already hate Uno for that reason, because you can be trapped in Uno for hours just drawing cards for no reason. It's kind of ridiculous. But it makes it a funny party game with friends, I guess. But in this game, you just draw 1. And whether that works or not, your turn is over. We move on to the next person. It's very effective, very efficient. So let's see what this person can put down. They have a person card. That's actually the only card that they can use here. So let's look at it. It says, say what a person can do, and place this card on a card with the same element or name. Remember, blue emphasizes verbs, so we have to say what people can do. We have to think of what would be a verb that fits that. So a person could walk, a person could run, a person could sit, a person could eat, and so on. So if you say just one of those words and put this card down, you're good to go. And you can say it in whatever target language you want to practice. The language you're practicing might depend on the people that you're with. Maybe your target language is Spanish, and you're playing with some of your Spanish-speaking friends or Spanish-studying friends. Or maybe you're playing with someone who's interested in Spanish. Maybe they're interested in Spanish, but they don't really know it, but you are learning Spanish. Maybe you're interested in French, but you don't really know it, and they're learning French. You guys can kind of teach and introduce yourself as you go along. That's the cooperative way to play this game. You can teach and help and educate each other in order to put the cards down. So you win when everyone has put down their cards and you've helped each other to learn. That's the cooperative way. You can also allow people, if they're not sure what to say for their cards, you can allow them to look it up and maybe skip their turn as a small punishment. Or maybe not. Or maybe you help them. That's the cooperative way. And when things get collaborative, you can really see the power of this style of game. Okay, but let's go on to the next person. So the next person doesn't have a person, they don't have a blue, but look, they have a wild card, this pink color one. Say the name of a sport. Place this card on any card. In other words, it doesn't matter what's the name of the card that's here or the elemental color. The wild card can be put on anything. Say the name of a sport, place this card on any card, and choose an element. So I get to choose whatever element I want. So I might say soccer. You know, I study Mandarin Chinese, so I would say 足球. That's soccer or football. Boom, I put this down, and now look, I want to choose one of these colors because that's the color I want to get rid of. So I might just say green, or I might just say earth. And that means the next person has to put down that color. Obviously, I wouldn't know what colors they have. But then they would have to put down a green color card. If they didn't have a green, they would have to put down a wild card. If they didn't have a wild card, they would have to draw a card. And then if they can put that card down, they can. If they can't, their turn's over. It's that simple. If the deck is kind of running out, then you just reshuffle these ones. And the first player to put down all their cards would be the winner. Now, if you're playing in a cooperative way, you can play until everyone's put down their cards. And everybody wins the game when everybody's finished successfully. If you want to play in the competitive way, this is where it gets interesting. So let's say that this person, he has to put down a green card, right? For the green card, it's a noun. He has to say the name of a place. Maybe he says the name of a place and it's not quite right. The other players can decide if they want to challenge them. This is the competitive version of play. So I could say, I don't really think you said that quite right. I'm going to challenge you. Now, if you're playing super competitively, when someone puts down their card and says what they want to say, they can't take it back. You issue a challenge, you check it. If you're right, then they have to take it back and draw one card or two cards, whatever. You can choose a house rule. If they're right, then they can leave it down. And I have to draw one card or two cards, however much you guys want the punishment to be. If you're playing it a little bit more friendly and you say, I'm going to challenge that, you could force them maybe to take it back. But, it's really up to you. This game's very adaptable. And then the first player to put down all their cards wins, and that will be the end of it. That's kind of the super competitive way, and that way can be good too. For the people who don't really like the competition or don't really favor that, that can be good too, because it forces people to think more carefully and try to speak really correctly in front of who's there. And sometimes people are worried, about, am I going to be learning mistakes? You're going to pick up some mistakes no matter what you do. I've seen mistakes on standardized tests. I've seen mistakes in textbooks. I've heard mistakes on audio CDs. I've learned mistakes in the classroom from teachers. You're going to learn mistakes no matter what. That's part of the game. Unlearning mistakes and relearning the right thing is just part of the learning process. We're in a state of forgetting all the time, and relearning and solidifying our memories all the time. That's natural. If you're too afraid that you're going to be making mistakes with the other people you play with, or picking up on mistakes from the other people you play with, you're missing out. You've got to go for the mess. You've got to dive into the mistakes. In that messiness, in that life and experience where you're making mistakes, you stand to gain the most. Well, that's just a little bit of my philosophy. I've always kept my ear open to learn from anybody I could in China, regardless of how well they spoke their language or mine or another foreign language. Okay, so we've talked about how to play the game cooperatively and competitively, and we've talked about how to start in a difficult way, just diving into the deep end, using all the cards. And we've talked about how to start in a more easy way, which is just taking about half of the categories that you think you can handle and adding in like 3 or 4 wild cards. That keeps things a little more simple. So we've talked about some different ways to play, and now let's look at some frequently asked questions. The first thing I'd like to talk about is, we already touched on it a little bit, but it's about the elements. So sometimes people see the word elements and they're like, elements, what is that? And I'm a little bit surprised, I gotta be honest. Maybe it's because I'm so interested in fantasy and historical cultures and native cultures and magic and things like that. The elements are earth, fire, water, and air. And different cultures even have a few more, such as the Chinese. They have elements like that they consider such as metal or wood. And as I already mentioned in the West, the concept of aether, the fifth element. So if that term bothers you, just think of it as colors. Don't worry about that term. And the next thing is about the storyline or the flavor text. Sometimes people say, hey, what is that? I don't get it. Or they get a little confused, like it's interrupting their gameplay. That's really the opposite of what I want to happen. And maybe I can refine this later so that doesn't happen as much. But I'm not going to take that off the cards anytime soon. Because for me, the flavor text adds to the story and the universe and the world of this game. And it's going to tie into the stories and the videos and the other resources that we're making to support this game and solidify and cement what people are learning through this game even more. These flavor text lines and the storylines are here to also introduce to you new concepts and new vocabulary from everything that I've learned in my life. It's to stretch your way of thinking. So as you're playing, you can look down to those lines just for entertainment. If they don't really work for you, or if you're not interested in them, or you think it's a bad idea to have that on the card, just ignore it, overlook it. Let's talk about some challenging cards that people often mention as being a little bit of a sticking point for them. Often it has to do with the blue verb cards. Maybe it has to do with the way I phrase the sentences a little bit, but I think if you give it some time, it's really going to make sense to you. Let me put out some cards that tend to stump people during the games. The marketplace, the greetings, the farewells. Let's see. Oh, I had it written down over here so I could get them out a little faster. Let me see. Places, food and drink. Oh, there's one. Alright, so here's just a few. Once we get into this, you're really going to see what it's like. And excuse me for just one moment. I'm going to see if I can connect my video here to my charger really quick because my phone just told me I'm running low on battery and I don't want to give this video up. Hold on just one sec. If you're enjoying this video and you like hanging out with me and talking about these games and language learning, don't forget to give it a like or subscribe to this video. Leave me a comment or a question down below. I really enjoy hanging out with you guys this way and diving into learning languages with games. Okay, we're charging. That's great because this video is a long one, but a very enjoyable one. So, the phrasing on the verb cards uses the word can, but I don't want you don't really have to make a sentence about the word can, okay? It's just a convenient way for me to make the sentence kind of like a template or a format for each card. But really these cards are emphasizing verbs. Now, these cards are a little bit tricky because they are going to stretch you to think in a more creative and abstract way. Take a look at this one. It says, say what a greeting or farewell can do. A greeting or a farewell. Think about someone who comes to the door and knocks. It's an old friend you haven't seen for a long time, and they surprise you, and everybody is so excited by their greeting. They say, hey, I'm back, or whatever. In that case, a greeting can surprise people. A greeting can excite people. Think about farewells. Maybe I'm really sad to part with you, but you say, don't worry, I'm going to call you as soon as I get there. I'm going to miss you so much, and, don't, this kind of farewell what I'm getting at is this kind of farewell can be reassuring. A farewell can reassure or comfort people. It can also sadden people to say goodbye. So those are the verbs I want you to draw out. Sadden, excite, reassure, warm. Maybe a greeting can warm you. So think more abstract, think more creatively. Think of how a writer might write a story. They might say, when the star of the show arrived, his greeting excited the people. So in that case, excite is the verb. That's what we're getting at here with these verb cards. Let's look at another one. Say what a marketplace can do. Most people don't really think of inanimate objects, things that are not living, as things that can do things, but they absolutely can. Marketplaces can open or close or shut down. Marketplaces can stink. Marketplaces can attract buyers. Marketplaces can deafen you with their noise. So, deafen, stink, attract, open, close. These are all verbs related to what marketplaces can do to us, or what happens around marketplaces. Food and drink. Say what a food or drink can do. On the surface, it might seem a little difficult. Give it some thought, and the options of what you can say are going to start to open for you. First of all, drinks like milk can spoil. They can go bad. They can spill. Food also can smell. Certain foods are stinky, like the durian in China. Foods can stink. Food can rot. Food also can excite or amuse or attract or interest people. So, those are some verbs surrounding. I'm just thinking of all the verbs I could say now. Some are kind of funny, but I'll leave that to you to think of some more crazy ones. A place. Say what a place can do. Well, that's similar to marketplace. Lindsay Williams, in her review video of this one, pointed out some great ones. Places can inspire you. I love that one. If you go to a library or a beautiful, famous city, they can inspire you. They can amaze you. They can open your mind. And then this card here is a good illustration of sometimes people kind of argue with each other over what they can say. Just make some house rules. Don't worry about it too much. This one says, say a person's name. Some people think, oh, we have to say a person's name, like Matthew. And some people say, no, it means like a person's job. Both are okay. Maybe you can allow both in this game. To tell you the truth, to be honest, I was thinking of people's actual names when I made this card, but it doesn't matter. Now, some people said, oh, but my name is Matthew no matter what. My name is Jessica no matter what. Well, no, it isn't. Not really. Not in a lot of languages. A lot of foreign languages will pronounce your name in a different way. So this game is trying to get you to say names in that target language that you're studying. Let me give an example. My name is Matthew. In Chinese, that is usually pronounced one of two ways, ma te or ma xiu. So, and when I was learning Spanish in high school, they told me Matthew in Spanish is Mateo. That is the name that we use. So, Mateo. So I would use that. And another way you can think about that is to pronounce people from that culture, pronounce those people's name in the way the people of that language pronounce that name. So like if I wanted to say Mao Zedong, I'm trying to pronounce it in a very bad way. I'm trying to pronounce it in a Western English way, like Mao Zedong or Mao Zedong. In Chinese, that will be Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong. Sorry, I'm still not saying it right because now I've messed myself up. Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong. I'm not sure if I had the tones right. I didn't memorize the tones for his name. But anyways, you want to try to say people's name pronounce their names in the way of your target language. And if you don't think your name has a way, look it up. You might be surprised. And if it really doesn't have a version in your target language, then pick a name that does, or pick a person's name from that culture. All right, so we rolled through the FAQ, and if you have any questions about how to play, leave them in the comments section. This would be a great video to put those in. Now, oh, this is really exciting. I love to hear and see of the variations that people are coming up with. Let me put these back out a little bit like the way they were before. Kind of like we're playing a game here. You can play this game really, I think 2 to 6 people is perfect. And if you really wanted to add more people, give them a smaller hand and use more cards. Maybe use the whole deck or even 2 decks. Let's talk about some variations for language learning purposes. I'm going to roll through this really quickly and leave you to work out the exact details because I don't want to spend, an insane amount of time in this video, like an hour and a half or 2 hours or more. Maybe I can talk about this in more detail another time. But some different variations. Number 1, you could say sentences every time you speak for every card. The basic way we play the game is we just say single words for the green, blue, and black and white cards. We just say single words. And for the red one, we try to put together complete sentences, and this keeps the game moving a little faster. You could make it so everybody, for every card they play, has to make a complete sentence. Another way, you can lock one round of this game into a particular tense. So you could say, okay, the next round we play is going to be past tense, or whatever. So everything you say, like all those verbs or sentences you make, has to be past tense. And then when you finish the game, you can, the next round you play, you can change what tense you're kind of locked in, quote unquote. Or you can make it so whenever somebody plays a wild card, they can choose a new requirement, a new tense, or some other requirement. That would be a great time to allow people to put their own spin on this game when they put down a wild card. You could require certain types of sentences, like for these red sentence cards, you could say, okay, in this round, you have to make question sentences, or you have to make exclamatory sentences, or declarative sentences, or interrogative sentences, or maybe sentences that include a certain type of word. Wow, that would be great for higher level groups. Another variation, you could time it. You could set timers when your turn's over so that other people have to think fast and speak fast, so it gets that muscle memory going and shows you really how deep you've learned your target language. Because if you're not really automatic with it, you're not there yet. So you might want to time this for some rounds or some particular groups of people. One great variant is to allow people to skip their turn in order to look up one thing. And that gets them in the mode of learning and feeling like they're learning something and accomplishing something, and they feel that sense of agency that they can put their cards down without failing and potentially still win the game. You could also let people look up one thing per turn without skipping their turn, but then you have to wait for them. For teachers and students, you could give rewards if you say something, if you put down a card and say something in that category, but it's also something you've learned in the class or that comes from the textbook or comes from the lesson. That would be fun. So maybe if I can do that, maybe I can put down 2 of my cards if possible. Or maybe if I can do that, the other people have to draw 1 card each, because I've used something very specific and hard to, from the lesson. Do you have another way, another variant idea? Leave it in the comments section down below. Alright, we've kind of finished up with the variants now. And let's move into different games that you can play with these cards. Now, I love this because for those of you who have been following me on this channel, you know that I play this a lot with children, especially my nephew, who's a big fan of this game. And we have played with these cards for hours. I'm not kidding you. We have played the whole afternoon away and learned so much. But the way we did it is because every 10 to 20 minutes or so, we switched into a different game. And if you take the time to learn these different games that you can play with this deck, you will definitely be able to engage and teach, especially young students and children, longer. So that can be a real learning goldmine. Let me show you how we do this. First thing you have to do is get some pairs of cards out. Sorry, this might take me a little bit of time, but you can do this too with me if you have these cards. Get some pairs of cards out. The more pairs you are going to include, the more difficult and long the game can become. But you may need more cards involved if you have more people. But let's just start with these. You'll get the idea. You need matches of cards, and you could potentially put 3 or 4 of the matches here, the categories. You will not need the wild cards for this. You need matches of cards. Okay, one different game we can play with these cards, which is fantastic, is concentration. Now don't skip out on me just yet. I know a lot of you know that game, but I'm going to show you how to put a spin on it for language learning. So you get these pairs, less pairs for, if the people are beginners or they're younger, you need less pairs to let them feel that they can handle this. Put the cards out like so. First player turns over 2 cards, and if they match, they can keep them. And if they don't match, you put them back. Next player goes. You know this game, concentration. I won't take too much time to explain it. But how about the language learning component? Well, I flip over 2 cards. Now I need to find a match. Okay, here's a match. I flip over 2 cards and they're a match. In order to take this match, I need to satisfy the challenge on one of the cards. Okay? And if you agree with me, I can keep it. If you want to challenge me and I'm wrong, I have to put it back. If you challenge me and I'm right, I get to keep it and maybe go again, take another turn. So you can incorporate language learning into this game of concentration. If you want to make it harder, you can add 3 cards that you have to find, or 4 cards that you have to find. You could play this with 20 or 30 cards. It could really test your memory, spatial memory, not just language vocabulary memory. All right? So that's the concentration way. Another game you can play is Go Fish. So again, you need to put in pairs of the cards, and you will not use the wild cards. Deal out a hand to each player. You're going to need some cards left over for the deck. I probably don't have quite enough cards here, but that's fine. You'll get the idea. And I'll ask, and I'm trying to get pairs in my hand and put down pairs of cards. And when I've put down all my, when I've matched everything up and put down all my cards, I win. So I need to ask people for what I need to make pairs. So I might ask, and I can ask whoever I want. I might say, do you have a greeting and farewell card? And you have to be honest with me. You have to tell me if you really do or not. If you do, I can say, okay, which color is it? You tell me which color, and I have to satisfy the challenge of that card to get that card, and then I can put down that pair. Challenge rules still apply. If you challenge what I said, and I'm wrong, then you can take my card. If I'm right, then I take your card, and I can go again, or something like this. If you don't really understand it, don't freak out. You can look up the rules of Go Fish online and how to play Go Fish first, and then come back and watch this, and you'll see what I'm saying. So you basically play Go Fish with an added challenge that in order to take that pair card you want from somebody else, you have to satisfy the challenge on that card. Isn't that great? It really brings language learning in just about any game, any card game. You could even do this with a standard deck of poker cards. That's what I love about cards. They're so adaptable. Okay. Little children will love this next one. It's basically a speed game. So you can play with all the cards, or, well, really, not for the youngest children. You just pick out like half the deck, maybe the cards they know, and you flip it over, and whichever student or child says the name of this card first wins, and they can take it. Or if you're playing with one-on-one, it's really great one-to-one, because you can let them win most of the time, and you can beat them some of the time. And that gets them really engaged and really competitive. Remember that experiment Jordan Peterson talked about with, I think it was I forget which animals he was talking about, but it was an experiment with animals, and they observed that the older members of the species would wrestle with the younger ones. But when they won too much of the time, the younger ones stopped playing, and they didn't participate anymore in the games. So when you play with younger children and students, you want to beat them sometimes, but let them win most of the time, and that keeps them really engaged and excited and learning and growing. You want to challenge them in that way. And of course, you want to teach them how to handle defeat sometimes, humbly, and, be a good sport. So in this game, to add the language learning component, you can flip it over, and the first one to satisfy the prompt gets to take the card. So it's a speed version. So what can a marketplace do? It can open. Boom, I get the card. Say what a place can do. Inspire. And again, we're doing this in our target languages. Still, with the challenges, somebody says, I challenge you, and they're right, then they can take my card, and, if they're wrong, I get to keep my card. Maybe a punishment could be they don't get to participate in the next round, so the next card that gets flipped over, they don't get to talk. See how simple this is? Put a little thought into things, a little imagination, you can get a lot of learning out. Okay, and the last one is the most creative, the most abstract, and that is to make some stories with these cards. A lot of people have said they love the pictures on these cards, they love the visuals, and stories just spring into their mind. I love that. Flip over, let's say, 3 of the cards, and ask whoever's turn it is to make a story about these 3 cards. And they can rearrange the order if they want. Or maybe they say, oh, I have 2 place cards. Let me get a new one. Okay? And we say, a hunter took a dagger, and he went to the ancient palace to look for where the tiger was hiding. And you try to say that in your target language. And if you do that successfully, you can keep these cards. So people can make stories. You could put out 3 cards to each person and let them think of a story all at the same time. And then when everybody's ready, you share those stories in the circle and then shuffle them back in and do it again. So that's the story making or storytelling way. Wow, this is a lot, but I hope this video, I hope you feel as jam-packed with value. And you can see how much love and effort I put into these games and the additional resources online. If you've really enjoyed this, I hope you'll consider liking and maybe sharing this video with a few of your friends who you think would really like it. I mean, so much of what we shared here today you can do with a normal deck of cards, if you think about it. Okay, so that's different types of games. Alright, now we're on to the last thing, which is the different purchasing options. Let's talk about the different variations of this game. The different variations of this game. Of course, you can get the game at languagecardgames.com, and when you go to the home page, a subscription box is going to pop up, and if you subscribe, we'll send you a discount coupon code that you can apply to receive some money off the total price of your cart. So what different versions of this game are available? I'm very excited to share this with you. And I'm going to show you some different versions of the game here in just a minute. I have them here with me. So what we were looking at is Language Guardians 1 in English. Language Guardians 1 is currently available in English, French, and Italian. How about that? Now we already know that you can use these cards to revise and enrich any foreign language, any target language. The only thing that matters, really, is that you're able to understand the language that's printed on the cards. it's not that the words here on this card is what's going to be teaching you. So it doesn't really matter which language is printed on the cards as long as you can understand it. You can use these cards to revise Spanish today, French tomorrow, and Spanish the day after that, or Chinese the day after that. Doesn't matter. What matters most is who you're playing with. You can get so much learning out of this, and take it wherever you travel. Take it to meet different people. Learn from different people. Language Guardians 2 is out now. And look at this. It's available in English only, but I'm expecting to have more languages for all these games. More and more languages will continue to be added. Spanish and Arabic are currently being considered. Let us know what language you'd like to see these games published in. Let us know what's popular. Now, we have some other options too. You can download, print out this game, cut it out, and start playing within minutes. This is the print and play version. I call it a PMP. Language Guardians 1 Print and Play is currently available in English and French. And Language Guardians 2 Print and Play is available in English. And I have a print and play here to show you. I recommend you print it out on a harder cardstock, not the normal, very light and thin printer paper, but go out and buy a slightly heavier cardstock. If you don't want to buy a whole pack, go to a print shop, a local print shop near you. Print these out. I have loved playing with these actually, especially when I don't want to be too worried. If there's like a messy table or if we're kind of snacking and eating, I'll grab this to play with, not my nicer cards, because I can always print out more of these later. Also, this is a cheaper option. So this is great for teachers and parents on a budget. You can print these out, laminate them. They'll last you forever. They'll last you a lifetime. One of the great things about this game is you're going to be learning new words all the time, depending on who you play with and what categories come up. This deck will last you a long time, and it's virtually limitless in terms of what vocabulary is going to come out. It's not like a lot of language card games out there where you learn the vocabulary on the cards, and then those cards are useless to you, and you have to go buy more decks. This one, the replay value is very high. So this is the print and play. I actually use it a lot, and I love it. I have the French card game here handy to show you. The French one is beautiful. I'm really, really happy with it. Check this out. This is the most recent game we produced. It looks awesome. Thanks to Kevin Pino for translating that. And the Italian one is translated by my good friend Leo Baccani. He did an amazing job on the Italian one. Unfortunately, I don't have that one with you, only because I've been playing with that one for longer. This one's newer. I've been playing with the Italian one for longer, and friends and kids and students kept wanting to take some as like a little souvenir, so it got chiseled away. I haven't cracked open a new one yet. But if you're wondering, how do I play with those? I don't know French, I don't know Italian, but I know the English cards so well that I know what they say because of the sentence frames. So it doesn't really matter. I can use these cards and just say Chinese words. So adaptable, so customizable. All right, we're almost wrapping things up here, but before you go, I want to point out a few more amazing opportunities. The first is that we have combo packages available, kind of like a product bundle available at languagecardgames.com. So if you buy more games, you're going to get a serious discount. So look for the combo packages, and when you check out, you can go to the notes section and just type in the names of the games you want, and you will get amazing value. We put great pride into packaging our combo packs. And again, we offer free shipping worldwide to any location. And also there's gift wrapping and gift boxing options. Now, this is also a really exciting option that I hope you'll consider. You can have gamified coaching lessons with me in your target language using these games. And not only these games, but I can share with you lifestyle advice, studying advice, language learning advice too. and habits. So we kind of weave that all together into a very motivation and confidence building program, and also a great language building program. So coaching is available. You can consider that. I can teach you one time for a certain price, and if you like that, if you enjoy that, then we can look at a combo, not a combo, but a coaching package that has a lower rate, and you get like 10 lessons. And I will teach you how to play these games really well, and I will help you to learn through the games and play these games with you, and also give you some other tips and advice that are tangentially related to the games, but still influence the results. And I think that would be great, especially if you're a parent or teacher and considering this for children or students who you know. I am actually a qualified teacher. I've been teaching for 10 years, and I'm a teaching director now at a foreign language school at a college. So I am a qualified teacher. I love to learn and teach through games. So if you want to consider that, check out, we call it the Card Langer Academy. If you love to learn languages with card games, you're a card langer, whether you know it or not. So we call it the Card Langer Academy, and we give coaching through the games, online, on video, wherever you are, we can do this. We're flexible. We can set it up whenever you have time. Anytime that works for you, we can work something out. So those are some of the purchasing options. All right, wow, we're coming. That was a lot. It was about an hour. I hope you got a lot of value and enjoyment out of this. Thank you for sticking with me. Boom. Check that box. Check all those boxes. Now, there's only one thing left for you to do. Head over to languagecardgames.com, subscribe if you haven't already, and consider starting your journey as a card langer today with your first purchase. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I tremendously loved sharing this time with you, and I'll see you back here next time at Language Card Games. Bye-bye.